You know, everybody's throwing their 2 cents out there. I might as well throw mine out there. I mean, I'm currently watching Jeff Shiegel, the Shrek Daddy, uh, do his rant, if you will, his video on the Undertaker streak ending. And even though I talked about this in my review, I am going to say this in response. Why now? Yeah, I understand it was the 30th anniversary of WrestleMania. I get that. But if I'm WWE, if I'm WWE freaking E, I would have waited. Yeah, I would have waited. I would have waited to give it to an up-and-comer. Someone that I know I'm going to build my future on, and thus let him become the one to break it. You know, Jeff makes some good points here. One, if you had John Cena break it, like I think one of the original plans was to be for that to happen, then it wouldn't be that big of a deal because at least you're having someone that out of respect says, hey, I still honor what you have done before me. And that no one's going to break, at least no one's going to break that legacy, and at least you would have someone with long-term investment that you've already put long-term investment in, someone you know that's not going to leave, someone you know that's not going to say, hey, I'm sick and tired of all the politics and crap, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go to TNA, or I'm going to go to Ring of Honor, or God forbid, maybe make a surprise debut in the new GFW, Global Force Wrestling. You know, at least you know with John Cena, he's going to be around long term. Triple H, same thing. You know, Jeff just mentioned if you were to have someone break it, it could have been Triple H 2 years ago. And why? Because you had the most opportune time to do it. One, it was Hell in a Cell. Two, it was against somebody that's going to be with the company to the end of his life, to the end of his run, in Triple H, Paul Levesque. And you also had someone that paralleled The Undertaker's career side by side through the new generation and the Attitude Era in Shawn Michaels. So why in the world, out of that opportunity, and even last year's opportunity with CM Punk, why in the world would you have Brock Lesnar do this? I can understand from maybe a storyline perspective, you could say, well, it just proves that even though Brock lost to Triple H at WrestleMania last year, that Brock is basically better than Triple H. That he's better than the guy that he beat twice. SummerSlam and Extreme Rules last year. SummerSlam back in 2012, Extreme Rules 2013. You could pretty much say that. And that would be a good point. But then again, as good of a point as that is, to me, even though it does make sense, it's to end the streak sometimes, end the streak down the line at a Mania, to end it to a guy that literally could say, after his final year on his current contract is up, could literally say, screw WWE again and go back to UFC like it's been rumored. It doesn't make sense. I mean, what are you going to do? Have the UFC announcers acknowledge that he did end Undertaker's streak just maybe a few times, maybe once or twice, and that's it? To me, if you were going to have it end, you could have had it end last year's CM Punk, because CM Punk needed desperately to win that match to really solidify his legacy, and probably you wouldn't have had CM Punk walk out the way he did after the Royal Rumble, because at least if he would have beaten the Undertaker, he would have been like, hey, if Undertaker let me end the streak, maybe facing Triple H this year, well, maybe facing Triple H at WrestleMania, I'll be able to beat him. Yeah, think about that. Think about that for a second. CM Punk, if they would have said, okay, let's give CM Punk the streak. Let's give him the victory. Let's have him be the one that ends it. You wouldn't have had him walk out the way you did. Maybe he would have realized, hey, if I could beat the streak, Eek at WrestleMania, maybe I'm going to be able to go over Triple H at WrestleMania 30. But did you do that? No, you didn't. Instead, you allow a guy that's going to be gone for maybe another few months go over The Undertaker. Now, I understand that, yes, it was The Undertaker's call. Oh, it was well, not his call, but basically it was Undertaker's decision long before this all started that if anybody was going to break it, he wanted Brock Lesnar. But if you were going to break the streak, you should have freaking broke it. This is the way I look at it. If you were going to break the streak, you should have had Brock Lesnar break the streak at WrestleMania 19. As crazy as that sounds, you should have had him break it there. But you didn't. You didn't have him break it there. And now you have him break it at a point to where he's not going to be around as much. Now some might say it was an audible. Some might say it was Undertaker's call and that he's earned that right. Maybe he has. Yeah, maybe he has after everything he's been through with this company. Yeah, maybe it was his call to say, I'm putting you over Brock. And you know what? Maybe we can't argue with that. But this is why I think WWE and mostly Vince McMahon like to be the ones that choose Undertaker's opponents. Because they know if he has a say in who his opponents are going to be, that sooner or later he's going to probably choose somebody like a Brock Lesnar that he'll get in the ring with and literally get hurt against. This is why WWE, to me, has made the right calls throughout the years with Undertaker agreeing to them, but to me has made the right calls by having him face guys that are not going to hurt him. He faced Triple H. Yeah, physical and everything, but at least he knew he would be okay against Triple H. CM Punk, the same reason. Shawn Michaels, the same reason. Mark Henry. And the list goes on. Edge. Batista. Jake the Snake. The list goes on. These are people WWE knew, especially as the streak became an attraction, became the main event, if you will, of WrestleMania at times. This is why they picked, in my opinion, the opponents for Taker to choose, probably with him saying, okay, agreeing to, saying, okay, I'll face the guy. Sounds good. But this, when you literally have Undertaker say, hey, I want Brock Lesnar this year or I'm not competing, something's not going to go wrong, and it did. And whether or not you want to believe that this was WWE and Undertaker and Vince McMahon's plan from the beginning, fine. If it was their plan, fine. We can't argue against it that much. If it was their call, it was their call. If it was Undertaker's call ultimately in the end, fine. Like we said, he has the honor of probably doing that. But if it was a freaking audible to where Undertaker was so banged up and beat up and injured during that match that he had no choice but to tell the ref, count 3, I'm too hurt to continue. So what? Continue. So what? So I can't even talk here because this is something I grew up with. Literally. 1991 is when this streak began against Superfly Jimmy Snuka. When the Phenom tag was passed from Snuka to Taker. 1991. You know how old I was? I was 11 and a half years old. And I stand before you right now, or sit here in front of this video before you, a guy that's going to be 35 in the next few months. That's how long this streak has been going. depending on who ultimately came up with the decision, whether it was the WWE, whether it was Vince McMahon, Undertaker, and some people in WWE, fine. Whether it was Taker that got the ultimate call to say, it's your decision, what do you want to do, fine. But if it wasn't audible, to where Undertaker just got so hurt during that match, and obviously you could see it, that he could not continue, I can understand that. I can probably understand that you can't continue, right? But even if you can't continue, you improvise, right? And maybe you can call an audible, saying, "Hey, look, I'm too injured. Let's do something to where I maybe lock in." Do what he did with Triple H. 3 years ago, Triple H faced him in the second of the WrestleMania matches. And Triple H tapped to the Hell's Gate. And this is when it looked the same as, almost similar to this, to last night, or 2 nights ago. The fact is, Taker was hurt. But did he call the audible and say, "Okay, Triple H, you're going over"? No. He said, they probably called the audible of saying, "I'm going to slap you into the submission," and that's it. And they could have done the same thing here. They could have had him put the Hell's Gate on Brock. As soon as Brock's going for the cover off the third at 5, they could have had him reach up, grab Brock, get the Hell's Gate, and get the win. But they didn't. And instead he decides to call the audible and say, "Okay, Brock, you're going over." To me, folks, I would have gone with an up-and-comer, or I would have done it last year with Punk, or maybe 2 years ago with Triple H. Would have made more sense, because you would have had long-term investment with Triple H. You probably wouldn't have had Punk walk out knowing that, hey, if I'm given the streak, that maybe, hey, I probably could have gone over Triple H at WrestleMania 30. But you decide to do it now, and all I could say is, if it's Undertaker's call and it's what he wanted, I gotta respect his decision. He gave us a lot of great memories, so I gotta respect it. I may not like it, and I know everybody here in the YWC doesn't like it. I know Jeff doesn't like it, but I gotta respect. But despite all that, with all the memories and stuff that he gave us, I have to respect it. If it was his decision, I have to respect it. And that's all I can say about it. That's all I can really say. But my personal opinion, if I'm WWE, I should have stuck to my guns and said, "Hey, you're not choosing your opponents for Mania. We're going to choose them for you because we don't want you to get hurt." Which is exactly what happened at WrestleMania 30. And if I was going to have anybody on the streak, it would have been an up-and-comer. It would have been someone maybe like John Cena, because I know I would have had long-term investment. Or it would have been someone up-and-coming. There's a lot of names I could throw out there that are up-and-comers, that are coming out of NXT, that are becoming main event players. Reigns is one of them. Roman Reigns, I think, would have been a great choice. Bray Wyatt, even though he lost at Mania to Cena, would have been a possibility as well. Maybe even Cesaro, who's getting a major push now too. You could have given it to him. Alexander Rusev, perhaps. Adam Rose, who's coming, perhaps. You could have given it to any of them. You know, again, like I said, as crazy as that sounds, you could have given it to any one of those guys. But you didn't. And again, like I said, the most logical choice to me, if any up-and-comers currently on the main roster right now should have been given it, if not this year, but next year, the opportunity to be the ones to end the streak and be given the streak, I would have gone with Cesaro, and I would have gone with Reigns. Because now, even if you get one more match, Taker, and it's against Sting, it's not going to matter. as much as it would have if he was still undefeated. And that's all I'm going to say. Let me know what you guys think down below. God bless. Take care. I'm out.